Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first edition of the Hustle and Hoops reaction episode on YouTube. This will be our first YouTube episode, so welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about the first round of NBA basketball, just going over the series, kind of just rambling. So there's not necessarily much order to this outside of we're going to talk about this series, this series, this series. So get ready for a little bit of discombobulated basketball talk. Let's have some fun, Duville. I didn't even say that yet. I'm here with my guy, Jacob.
What's
Du,
going on? We're
how you
running the
doing?
two-man today, and we're just hoping to grab some nice reactions for the games and the overall series, of course. So let's get right into it.
Absolutely. All right, let's start with Brooklyn, Boston. Go hot first. Let's hear it, dude. You got any
This is a hot one. It was this was the only sweep, right?
Yep. Only
Yeah.
sweep.
So this was the only sweep, but obviously nobody in the world except for diehard Boston fans called this sweep to happen. And today I'm wearing the Celtics Kyrie jersey because it only feels right. After on the pod, I said Nets in 6. 2 weeks in a row, I said Nets in 6 after it was going downhill. But that's because I feel like there was never too much hope lost for the Nets to bring it back. With the Ben Simmons news coming, he was coming back in game 4, and then it turns out he didn't come back at all, obviously. And that was just like a total whatever. You don't even know what's happening there because they're
Yeah,
saying something, but obviously we all know something's happening behind closed doors. But I don't know. I think I wanted to talk about this series first because for the later half of the series, KD and Kyrie just looked uninterested as fuck. And it just seemed like they wanted to get out and just get on to the offseason and just try to make moves there. I don't know what Doug thinks, but that's what it felt to me. It just felt like the Celtics took over early with that game 1 game winner from Tatum off the nice inbound pass. It just felt like the life was
it was
just blown
downhill
out of
from
him.
there.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Like without that game 1 win, we could honestly relate it to the I think it was the 2018 Cavs Warriors finals when J.R. Smith did the fucking the mishap and LeBron was very
It was
mad
over
about
after
that.
that.
Yeah, it's like it's after that game, it just feels like it's over. And I don't know if they got that game, things would obviously be different, but they didn't, and it's just sad to see. Sad
I,
to
I
see.
like that comparison. I just think to a certain degree, it was more I just never thought it was over. We both didn't think it was over. You still had them in 6. Like I had picked them originally in 7, and I was still super hesitant about switching over to Boston in 7 because it's like you said, like outside of the disinterest, it's still fucking KD and Kyrie, like probably the most talented scorer of all time, and then one of the most I don't know, creative ball handlers of all time. I'm trying to think of a
Crafty, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Like a nice thing to say about Kyrie after they lost, but like
There's not much.
it's just such an indictment on the franchise as a whole for Brooklyn. Like I think, yes, a large part of it was KD and Kyrie kind of clocked out at the end of their series there, but at the same time, it was like as a whole, that series sucked for all of Brooklyn. Like no one could get shit. You had a little Dragic game. You had, your guys coming in and giving you a little bit, but none of those games, when it came down to it, truly felt like Brooklyn had put in their best effort or, you know, really had a chance to win looking back on it.
Yeah, it always felt honestly like Steve Nash was one step behind. And what I mean by that is like he made some right moves by putting in Blake in that game 3 stretch when he just took over right there. And then after that stuff happens, he just takes them out. And with the Drummond situation, he was rightfully so to take him out because he just tipped the ball to them twice. And that was just bogus. Like, I don't even know what he was doing. In the first 2 games, he wasn't doing much at all. So that was rightfully so. But these guys like Goran Dragic, who was thrown into the rotation, and all of a sudden he was your 3rd best leading scorer, and then he's not seeing many minutes at all. It's just like, what is Steve Nash doing? And on top of that, out of timeouts, the ball was getting turned over so many times, and many experts and analysts say when you come out of a timeout, that play is directly on the coach. So if you are turning the ball over, that's directly an image of what your coach is doing. And it's just like Tatum, Smart, all these guards. I mean, not Tatum's not really a guard, but Tatum, Jalen, all these guards were just stealing and pickpocketing. And it looked horrendous because Steve Nash just didn't know what to do. And then he's relying on KD and Kyrie, and they're shooting fucking 4 for 19. And it's like,
they're already getting their ass beat.
Yeah, what more can they do? But at the same time, you need them to do more, because when you say you're top 10 in the league for Kyrie, and then KD is obviously top 5 in the league, when you have both of those players on your team, and you're expecting Ben Simmons back, but we're not going to talk about that. When you have both of those top talents on your team and they're not producing against the Celtics, but they have the best defense in the team, we have to give them their flowers. It's really just a shame. And the 4-game sweep was worth it. It made sense after all in hindsight. Hindsight's 2020. We know that, but it's just really tough to see. I thought the Nets were going to put up a fight, and it just felt like they rolled over.
Yeah, I mean, we really, really, like you said, have to give credit to that Boston defense. You touched on probably the biggest aspect of that, which was just making it, I wouldn't say impossible, but it's just like every time a player on Brooklyn, specifically KD or Kyrie, got the ball, you're either getting a turnover or you're getting double or triple teamed. And that's just how it's going to be. And the Grant Williams, Al Horford kind of like double team while Rob Williams was out was just ridiculously effective against KD. Just not allowing him to get in the paint to his spots, not allowing him to really get up his shot. If he goes up for a shot, they're going to be on that ball the whole time, go for the dribble, on the ball the whole time. It was just, for a guy who says, like you said, that he said he was the best player in the league, and you're getting schooled, like absolutely just schooled on defense by Grant Williams. No offense, but like if you're the greatest player in the league, you're not getting the ball stripped from you 5 times out of 10 every single time you go down. Like that's just, it was embarrassing at certain points, like you said, to watch. Like it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to get pissed off here, but the last thing I'll say about this series, and this is giving flowers to that defense, they came into all 4 games and said, KD and Kyrie are not going to beat us. It's going to be these veterans. And what it came down to is these veterans can hit during the first 3 quarters, and then the 4th quarter hits and it's over. And it just feels like that Boston defense was clamping everything from the wings to the paint, and it just felt like the Brooklyn Nets couldn't get it going, and they need to figure it out. I need to shout out Nick Claxton because he was trash. I mean, that 0 for 9 stretch, that's a record. That was a record. He beat Shaq there, and it's disgusting because if he hit even half of those, they would have been in that game. Overtime would have happened, and you never know when overtime happens with KD and Kyrie. But no, they didn't even get there because he missed all 9. And that's something you have to work on in the offseason, because then you have Nick Claxton, and then you're working about Andre Drummond, who's not much better. He's like They don't have that. They don't have a big man who can be in the fourth
Who
quarter.
could play? Yeah, exactly. That's
It's
what I was
not
gonna
good.
say.
And you have to figure that out. This is a team game, 5-on-5. It's not going to be just KD and Kyrie. I'm sorry. Like with this team around them, it's not going to happen. So this offseason is going to be huge. They have to sign some players. They have to let go of some players. And I'm really excited to see where they go with that because it just makes for better basketball talk, honestly.
If Kyrie accepts that player option.
Most definitely it will. Why wouldn't he?
I don't know.
I'm get all that money, and then he'll be able to play with KD again. Like that's when Kyrie gets to play with a star player. That's when he shines. We saw that with LeBron, but not this offseason. He was ass. But KD wasn't holding up to his end of the bargain. If KD was putting up LeBron numbers in the playoffs, which he has,
Kyrie, they wouldn't have been in this position if Kyrie had put in his equal work. Man played a quarter of the season.
We're not going to get political here or COVID all about.
I don't know, but
that
that's
happened.
not what I'm even.
It happened. We can't go back. But I will say he should not have shouted out how other teams got to gel longer than him. Like,
right.
This was his decision.
That's what I'm trying to say. And COVID or not, like ignore the COVID aspect.
COVID or not, it was his decision, and that ultimately hurt the team's chemistry. We have to call it what it is. Yeah, it did. Without him there the entire season, that hurt the chemistry. And him showing up the later half of the season, playing like 30 games, like that's not enough.
And dominating the ball.
Yeah, for a star point guard, I can't say superstar anymore because he just wasn't doing that. He had some great games, but for a star point guard, he cannot be saying these things off the court, looking disinterested off the court. We saw that clip of him walking to the game and he just looked like he didn't want to be there at all. So he cannot carry himself off the court like this and then come on and just play like shit. It's not going to happen. And then for everybody to click and you guys win. It doesn't work like that.
It's a fact. Well, right. I mean,
yeah. On to the next.
Realistically, there wasn't even, on to the next. Memphis and Minnesota. I think this, we agree was probably the most surprising series, first round series out of any of them. I did not, I had a lot of hope for the Timberwolves, but I was not expecting them to give this much trouble to Memphis, specifically really just to their bigs and to Ja Morant. Outside of that, obviously Desmond Bane had his successes. Dylan Brooks had a game. Xavier Tillman and blanking right now.
Jaren Jackson?
Nah, Jaren Jackson was terrible in this series. He couldn't stay on the fucking floor.
I thought you were talking about the MSU boys.
No, Brandon Clark. I don't know why I was blanking on Brandon Clark. I do agree. But Xavier Tillman and Brandon Clark got their chance to show off their talents. But it was an odd series. Everyone knows the big thing. The two blown leads in game 3 or 4 or whatever.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
2 20-point leads just folded on. I mean, it's a young team in Minnesota. It's a young team in Memphis. But there were a lot of aspects of this series that pointed out some serious flaws in both of these organizations. Not only for, Memphis in the second round, but also as a whole, just for both of these teams looking into the future. What did you take away specifically from the series?
I think first off, I want to say this was the most entertaining first round matchup because we saw the technicals from Pat Bev. We saw the cat just getting flustered. We saw the jaw dunk and
his tweets.
Yeah, and Desmond Bane popping off. Have to give him his flowers. It was all around very entertaining. But I want to say for the Wolves, it has to be the cat ? Because we've seen him now in a couple playoff series where he's lost his cool. If he doesn't come out popping off, he's not going to have a great game. And that's putting extra weight on D'Lo, Ant, Pat Bev, Jaden McDaniels, these young guys, except Pat Bev, to perform. And it's honestly,
And D'Lo to a degree because he's been here before.
yeah, D'Lo, but like he's never, he's never been like that guy on a team because he's a snitch. But I
So he
want to
wasn't
go
the
back
guy
to
in
Cat.
Brooklyn.
He was great on Brooklyn, but that was like Jared Dudley, Karis LeVert. It
I
was
know
like
it
a
was more of a
weird,
team. It was more of a
yeah.
team success, but still.
They had a great culture there. But I want to go to Cat. Like when you say he's the face of the franchise, even though Ant will be the face, we all know Ant will be the face. When Cat is the right now face and he is losing his cool up and down the court, like crying about fouls to these refs, absolutely just not even being a nuisance or anything, like not like providing to the team at all. It's just like you
crying
have
about
to what?
crying about a foul that the refs didn't call as your teammate is literally getting a bucket is one of the most egregious things you could possibly do in the game of basketball.
It's like he's never heard the term play until the whistle. He all like all these guys in the NBA, we all know they have egos. They get paid millions of dollars, but there's some guys who go over the line. And Cat, he's complaining about so many calls. It's just like, what are you doing? And I honestly have to give some flowers to Pat Bev because he'll complain. We all know he complains and shouts and does whatever, but he's a grinder. We saw that this series. He was grinding, just making plays. They came up with the loss, and it's not all on him. But it just felt like they were on to something. That culture can be very great. Just Cat needs to get his character in line. Like he has to figure himself out. He was the 3-point champion this year, but he was pulling like a 30-foot 3-pointer with 20 seconds on the shot clock. I don't understand that. Like that might be Steph Curry's fault, but you cannot justify that for a 7-foot big man to pull it with 20 seconds on the shot.
Anybody. You can't justify anybody doing that.
Yeah, that's true. Person. But honestly, it's just like that's a joke when you're up that much and you're just giving them a chance to get the ball, come down, get a fast break. Like I don't know. It just felt like the T-Wolves gave it away. They had the chances. They know they can get back there. It's whether or not they develop and figure out what they're going to do next.
I think touching on a less basketball sense of what you were talking, the less basketball aspect you were talking about, but it plays such a major role in winning teams is the culture of the team. And I think flowers to Pat Bev, like you said, every team realistically would want a Pat Bev. You got a guy who sets the defensive tone. You got a guy who gives energy all 48 minutes of the game if need be. Like he is there full time to do his job and is fully presenting at the highest level when it comes to effort and energy. And you want that. The issue is when you have a guy, like you said, like Cat, who brings this constant complaints and frustration and inability to just take it as it goes. I mean, you have such a childish star in Cat who cannot take a single fucking piece of criticism, even if it's a ref calling a foul. It's insane. And when you have guys like that who don't buy into the culture of someone, obviously Pat Bev does his little shenanigans, but you saw the impact it had on people like D'Angelo Russell, like Anthony Edwards, who, you don't often see a star player say, even though he made a lot of mistakes on the defensive end, you don't see a star player or a future star player say, hey, I want to be the DPOY or I'm the DPOY. Like it's not often that happens, especially from a guard. So we love to see that. But it's really hard for the whole team to buy in on this winning chemistry or this winning culture when you have that star guy who complains all the time and can't do shit on the floor if he's frustrated, which is all the time.
Yeah.
It's an interesting dilemma to have going into the offseason for Minnesota. And there are a few things they can do. I'm just not sure that they'd actually do them.
I don't know. I want to shout out Draymond Green because he knows every time he plays Cat, it's barbecue chicken. He's a trash talker. It's so easy to get under this guy's skin. It's a joke. Cat needs to figure it out because if this keeps going on, he's gonna run himself out of Minnesota. He'll get a whack job, and then we won't even know. I mean, he has to figure his character out before people start calling for his head. And I know they're pissed off about it because they blew so many leads this series. And I'm not putting it all on Cat. It should not go all on Cat. But his character needs to be in question right now. He has to figure it out. And that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to bash him too much. But on the other end, I want to shout out the Grizzlies because they had some fine coaching plays. And he didn't have the best series, but he was putting in work. I mean, Desmond Bane, he's come out as a real, like, possible all-star soon. I don't know. But if he continues to play
Strong
like that,
role player.
I don't know. I think if he's coming out first half popping like 17 like that, that would be something they would really need because Dylan Brooks wasn't the best. I mean, Tyus Jones was putting in work. I'll say
Dylan
that.
Brooks has proved himself to be a mid role player
Exactly.
so far.
So they need Desmond Bane because Jaren Jackson.
Ja got locked.
Yeah, exactly. Like they can't all do it themselves.
Which is another reason to be pissed off if you're Minnesota. You locked up their star player and you still couldn't win the series.
Yeah, and Jaren Jackson didn't do anything. He was almost fouling out every game. So,
I mean, he literally, as people have talked about it, but he literally averaged 25 minutes a game. Yeah. Like that is terrible for your starting big, for your literal defensive anchor. He averaged the most blocks in the league this year. He was top, whatever in defensive player of the year, and he couldn't stay on the floor. I mean,
yeah, it's a shame.
Got some issues. You got some issues.
Some question marks everywhere, but Memphis moves on to play the Warriors, and we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's next series. Let's talk about Phoenix, New Orleans. Really, I think I'm looking at my notes from when I originally recorded this. It says Chris Paul is God. There's not much else to say. He had probably one of his worst games ever in this series in game 3, if I'm not mistaken. One of the games where he had 4 points or whatever. 3 turnovers, barely any impact on that game, and they got slapped. I think that was the first game Devin Booker went out. I could be wrong about that. Well, technically the second game since he went out at halftime, but still. DeAndre Ayton had his games. It was kind of a back and forth between him and Valanciunas. After game 2, I think Ayton had the upper hand in game 1 and 2, and then Valanciunas kind of stepped up. It's just this Suns team is dangerous, like really dangerous. If they get hot, with the injuries and things that are going on, the East not looking as, competent or tough as it was going into the playoffs, really all regular season. I don't know. This could be a rerun of last year with just a slightly different ending. Just erase those last 4 games.
I don't know about that. We still have the Warriors in the West, and they are cooking right now. But I won't deny, fully healthy, the Suns are a force to be reckoned with. And when I say that, I mean, in the West, it's really the Suns and Warriors. We have to be honest here. I would bet a lot to see them in the conference finals. So we'll see how that goes. But for the Suns, I think the Devin Booker injury was a little alarming, and it was great to see him come back because he looked great. and he I don't know if he was on a minute restriction, but
Ish,
yeah, yeah,
ish. Like
he
not
was
really, but
he was trying to make sure he was good, so he was making sure for round 2 he'll be okay. But shouts out to Chris Paul. He looked unreal. I mean, Jose Alvarado kind of got under his skin a little bit. We can't lie there. He had a game or two. But I
the
really want to
rookies.
shout out Brandon Ingram here because he has come into his own and really shown that he is a first option on this team without a doubt. And
Really quick, Devin Booker did play 32 minutes in game
okay,
6.
so
So no
that is
minutes
not
restriction.
that is not a minute restriction. So yeah, he had a great game. But shouts out to Devin Booker. I mean, CJ McCollum kind of looked like he lost that mid-range touch. I don't know if that was the defense, but it just looked like he was a little off.
It was a
I
rough series for CJ for sure.
I think he'll be better coming into the next season, fully knowing the playbook and the system and what they're doing. And I think with this New Orleans team as a whole, inserting Zion into the lineup coming next season would be a huge addition to them. And without it, I understand he's still trying to rehab and get to 100%. But we were seeing those 360 late like dunks pregame, and everyone was saying if you can do that, like you could give us 15 minutes. And I would really be sad to not see him start coming into next season. So inserting Zion into the lineup will be a huge addition, and I think Brandon Ingram, that'll just open up the floor for Brandon and CJ. So that'll really help them. And I want to shout out Jose Alvarado again because Grand Theft Auto will never die.
Grand Theft Alvarado.
Grand Theft Alvarado will always be living, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, the Pelicans should just celebrate the fact that they made it to the playoffs in the first place. I mean, they went 1-12 or whatever in the first, 13 games, and then the first like 30, it was like 4-20 something. It was a rough go for the beginning of the Pelican season. And Willie Green started to turn things around the 30-game mark. They made the trade for CJ McCollum, which was huge. And it just, this Pelicans team is super interesting. It looked a little weird because, obviously, like you said, you don't have Zion. So Jackson Hayes kind of had to play that 4 role, which was interesting throughout the series to see. I really, really liked what I saw out of him, except for that push.
That ejection.
Yeah, that ejection was some bullshit. Don't do that in the future. That's just some stupid shit.
It was a clean truck, as
It was
said.
a clean as truck, yes.
Yeah,
but
so we respect it, but
very
in
dirty.
basketball, you can't do it. You just can't do that.
We don't need it. But on the Zion note, something that I just have to say, and I could be totally wrong about this, but coming into next season, he needs to get his ass on a court ASAP, because if not, my concern is sooner or later we're going to start seeing the Ben Simmons talk with Zion. We're going to start hearing a lot of big media guys really start going in on Zion, because obviously I think, to a certain degree, a lot of these guys realize that it's the team, it's the Pelicans that are truly keeping him out of this, which is why the Ben Simmons comparison isn't perfect. But in the end, what the media does is still going to be what the media does. And I think that's what this is coming to. And with the amazing end of the season that the Pelicans have had, in comparison, and being able to take 2 games from Phoenix, from the 1 seed, from the bye, and, from the far, and whatever the phrase is, the best team in the league in Phoenix, you gave them 2 wins. They were in the conference finals last year. I have a lot of, high expectations. I have a lot of high expectations for this Phoenix team, or for this New Orleans team going into the future. They got a lot of pieces. We do have to shout out their rookies. Like you said, Jose Alvarado coming in and bringing pressure against the point guard, one of the greatest point guards of all time, making him sweat a little bit. You had Herbert Jones, who we'll save for a second because I want to talk about Trey Murphy first. You got a really great prototypical 3-and-D wing in Trey Murphy. He has a little athleticism to him. He's got that same mentality that it looks like a lot of these New Orleans guys have, which it's great to see. It's great to see. And then Herbert Jones, a rookie, probably the best perimeter defender in the league that we have right now, at least top 3. He always knows where to be. And the great thing about Herb that I think has, just taken him to the next level in projections realistically is the offensive game. He knows where to be on both sides of the ball. So he's not always making all of his shots. He's not the most efficient shooter in the world, but Herb knows what to do and knows what the game plan is and what he needs to be doing. He knows his role and he fits it well. And he played decently on the offensive side in this series. I just have a lot to look forward to for this New Orleans team. And, based off where you guys have been in the past, good for you. Good for you, New Orleans. Let's move on to the next series. Looking at Dallas and Utah. We probably have to speed up. I feel like we are going really slow right now.
We're
just
good.
based on the timing, but I have no clue how long we've been doing this. So whatever. Not like it matters. Dallas versus Utah. Okay. Dallas versus Utah. I am not super surprised about this. I never buy in. I don't think any of us buy into the Jazz regular season, successes in the last 4 years. It's just been consistent, 1 to 5 seed and get blown out in the first round by some, random ass team. It's I don't even want to talk about Utah for real. Let's just talk about Dallas because I think everyone knows what the issues are with Utah, why they lost. We really don't need to talk about it. Dallas, on the other hand, players like Jalen Brunson, who is going to get a bag this offseason, hopefully.
He will.
Maxi Kleber, 8 threes in a game. Where did that come from? No one knows. And then you have Luka coming back, in the last couple of games, looking like himself. It was a little odd for the team, I think, at first, just to kind of readjust back to, from the Brunson to the Doncic. It's definitely quite a different play style in certain aspects. A little bit quicker for Brunson. They just run a lot more, but still a great team. And while they're not necessarily on Phoenix's level, what do you think? What are you looking at for Dallas coming out of the series?
Coming out of the series, I want them to keep running their system and finding the open man. I think that's what they do best, is finding those open threes. And that's why these X factors in this particular series shined, like the Maxi Kleber, Jalen Brunson, Dorian Finley, and even a Trey Burke at times, I would say. Josh Green, shouts out. I mean, just all these guys who you wouldn't expect at first just popped off. And without Luka, they did great. They split them in Dallas, I believe. They split 1-1. And that was with the Jalen 40 bomb. And that was just unreal. I want to shout out to Jalen. That was just so
Michigan fans know.
Yeah, sorry about that, Michigan fans who went to Nova. So sorry. Fuck DiVincenzo. But
that's a fact.
But back on track. I want to shout out Quinn Snyder because he did the best he could. And we saw this Twitter picture before he started as Utah head coach, he looked very young, very full of life, and his full head of hair. And now, after this season, his picture looks like he's been
Bad.
drained and his receding hairline is there and he's got bags under his eyes. So I just want to feel for Coach Quinn, because he's been going through it and that is tough. But
Going through it for like
now
5
now
years
there
now.
are rumors that he could be a Lakers head coach, so that could even get worse. So
Well, you know what?
we'll
Actually,
see.
let's definitely talk about Utah because I forgot that these quotes had come out. I don't know if you saw these, but Rudy was quoted in some lengthy. I don't know why I said quoted. Whatever.
Let me stop you. I don't want to talk about Rudy because you and I do not like Rudy.
No, but that's
and
not
this will go on to a long tangent about Rudy and how we do not like Rudy.
Okay, so really quick then, I'll just tell you what the quotes were.
Give me a gist
It was purely Rudy saying
about his
seeming, or it
bees.
seems like Rudy was talking about the fact that in the offseason, they've got a choice. It's Donovan or me. And realistically, and this is like Rudy's words or whatever, there is a Western Conference power that's very interested in paying a hefty price for my talents, which is a weird thing to say for an NBA player because you're about to get fined. So have fun with that. But, you know, I wanted to bring that up because I think, like you said, we have to give aspects of the Jazz organization like Quinn Snyder certain props. You know, you've had to deal with one of the most underratedly dramatic teams in the NBA in Utah, where like they almost constantly seem to be having, it might not always be like a big issue, but they constantly seem to be having some kind of issue going on there.
Jordan Clarkson.
So, you know, like you said, yeah, I think maybe it's not the best idea to talk about Rudy. So we can go back, you know, do.
No, I want to
have
comment.
anything else?
I will comment on what you said about the
okay.
Quote from Rudy about pick me or Donovan. And there's a Western Conference guy out there who wants me.
Team.
I think that is total fucking bullshit, because anybody who comes to their front office and says that has a fat ego and needs to go. You're not
sorry, I forgot
first.
the spiciest, most important part of the quote. He also said that there were guards in the Western Conference that gave more effort and provided more on the defensive end as well as the offensive end than Donovan, and he thought that Donovan was losing athleticism and not giving effort on defense.
That's because Donovan doesn't like this guy and doesn't want to pass to him at all. Like,
doesn't want to play
that's
with him.
rightfully so. Donovan, when he wants to, he can be the most dominant player on the court. He just has lost interest, and that's okay because Rudy sucks. He doesn't have a post game, and he's only good for really rebounding. He's like a glorified Drummond back in the day. I'm not going to lie. Like, he doesn't have a shot. His free throw isn't the best. I mean,
offensively, I'm not going to root for Rudy Gobert at all, but defensively, I'll give him his flowers.
Yes, but Drummond was also, we were giving his flowers in 2016.
I wasn't.
Like,
I never gave him a flower.
Yes, you did. Don't lie to me right now. Don't lie to me. Before Blake Griffin got there, before Blake Griffin got to Detroit, you were giving flowers to him. He was an all-star.
I do not remember ever calling Drummond a good player.
Yes, you did.
I'm saying I don't remember.
When he was there with Reggie, Marcus Morris, KCP.
I was saying that back
Ish
then.
Smith. Yes.
Okay.
Because he wasn't bad. He was getting 20 games.
Right, but he was also giving no effort.
Yes, he was. He was one of the more hustling guys ever. And so many times Reggie would come down, throw it off the backboard, and he would just get the rebound and flush it home. You'd love that. Let's not lie here, but let's get back on track.
Yeah, I
Drummond
don't
was
know
a
about
good
that.
player before Blake. We know that.
Whatever.
Rebounding
Gobert.
champion.
Rudy Gobert. Dallas
Rudy
Mavericks.
Gobert's got to
Utah
go.
Jazz.
Gobert has got to go. I'm sorry. That's the truth. You keep Donovan, get a better big man, and just you go on. You don't have to go into rebuild mode, but you have the pieces to ship off Gobert and get
Restructure.
a great return. Even if it's a pick in this draft, like you have
Even
the
if it's
pieces.
Karl Anthony Towns.
Absolutely, no. I wouldn't want Cat if I'm the Jazz.
So let's.
But if I'm the T-Wolves, I wouldn't want Gobert. Like that. That's like vice versa. I wouldn't want either of them.
So let's move on from the clearly we're just not even talking about the playoffs anymore. Which is fine, but you know it happens with us.
It's just Cap. I mean,
It just
come on.
happens with us. You know, that's just how we work. Let's move on over to the East Coast. Talk about some Philly and Toronto, which was a rough series for me. You know, I think there's a misconception in the sense that I hate James Harden.
There is.
And I think
there's an agenda, Doug.
And I think to an extent you're right. Because I do hate a player who chooses when to give effort and, you know, just brings nothing to the team outside of, you know, his fake bullshit stats. Gives no effort on the defensive end. Really barely gives any effort on the offensive end, except for when he gets the ball. But that's not my point. My point is that the only reason that I'm saying what I'm saying about James Harden is because of what he's done and shown us in the last year or so. 2 years, a little bit more. That's what's pissed me off about James Harden. That's what's made me dislike James Harden and say what I've said about him. That's it. Purely off that. That's just, I have to get that out of the way.
All right, but let me just quickly say, other people have agreed with you on that. Even myself, when he got fat in Houston and demanded the trade, that's when it started going downhill. And that's where I'm agreeing with you. But your other comments about him not being a superstar based on Shub's criteria was totally not true. Like it just wasn't.
Right, but what I said in that moment, which is still true, is that I wasn't arguing James Harden wasn't a superstar. I was arguing against Shub's point. That was
the
it.
Glue guy?
No, just his criteria. I was just arguing against his criteria for a superstar, because if that was his criteria for James Harden to be a superstar, then technically James Harden wouldn't meet the criteria. That's all I was saying.
But that's where we disagree.
No, but you don't get what I'm saying, because can you list me all of Shub's criteria right now?
No.
Exactly. That's my point.
Sorry.
Like, no,
but
you
I
can't.
tried to.
I'm not saying James Harden as a whole isn't a superstar. Right now, he's a star, maybe. Yeah, I'd put him around there, a star, kind of.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with
but
that.
As a whole, yes, of course, James Harden in his career is a superstar. He gave all of your favorite players 60. Like, I'm not denying that he was a superstar. I'm saying he isn't right now. Which it sounds like you agree with.
Yes, but
and you
were saying in that argument when he was on the Rockets.
No, I didn't. When did I say when he was on the Rockets that he wasn't a superstar?
We're not getting off track.
Yeah.
Listen to the other podcast.
Philly,
this.
Toronto.
You'll
Toronto.
Understand what I'm saying.
And the reason why I was bringing up James Harden is because my concern and the reason why I was so strong on Toronto winning is because I didn't believe in Philly's others. Simple as that. And that for me was Joel Embiid and then the others. Everyone else is the others.
I want to say I agree with that, but the only reason I said Philly and foe was because of the free throw numbers. and I think
Yeah.
that's justifiable. Joel and James obviously can't do it alone, but with the
Joel.
amount of calls they got, they were able to. That's all I'll say. They
I mean,
almost blew it. They almost blew it.
you also had, you had the Tyrese Maxey game in the first game. You had Tobias show up in the first game. You had Danny Green making most of his shots in most of the games.
Tobias had a pretty decent series. I'll say that.
For what I was expecting. Yeah.
Yes, it was above what we were expecting, and that's honestly
nothing because
more than what we could have asked. If you're even the coaches, like,
oh no, I'm saying our expectations were nothing. I had no expectations.
That's you. That is you. But we expected more, and he did more. So we just have to give him some flowers. But I want to give Tyrese the flowers because he deserves them. He will be an all-star one day. I think that's true. He's that guy. He will be that guy. They said coming out of high school he was going to be an NBA player. That's truth.
I mean, he looked like an NBA scorer.
Yeah, and he has been
from high school.
He can pull those
deep ass
anywhere.
Bag.
He can
deep
pull.
Ass bag.
He can't pull logos, but he can pull pretty much anywhere within.
I mean, it's. I don't deny that Philly is a good team. I just don't trust the others to be consistent, and that's it. With Toronto.
Hold up, wait.
I have trust in them.
Let me ask you. When you say don't trust others,
everyone except for Joel Embiid.
No, is that code word for you don't trust Doc Rivers' strategy? Because I think deep down they have the team. They could make it there. They could easily make it there with the right scheme.
You need. We've seen this. We talked about this. You need more than just one or two guys to win a championship.
All right. So
as of right now,
what do they need right now?
They need bench players. They need some kind of consistent scoring off the bench, which was Seth Curry this year, but then they traded him and Ben Simmons for James Harden.
That's a fact.
Ben Simmons wasn't playing, so you won that trade as of right now. Like, you have a player who's playing and giving you minutes and being productive on the floor to a certain degree. That's better than nothing. And really quickly to answer your question, like, I think the Doc Rivers thing, man, I just don't really factor him too much into series. It's more, I see more based on, like, just the team and the roster and how they play. And I know a lot of that has to do with Doc Rivers, but I just don't think about Doc Rivers too much when I look at his teams. Just because I don't expect him to do anything necessarily that's going to make an impact.
That's fair.
He did bring in Paul Reed a little bit, which was nice to see. He was pretty adamant about not playing him before the series, or not playing him, but like not saying he was going to play him, despite him playing much better and them having dropped DeAndre Jordan before this playoffs. I
want to ask you,
I don't know,
if you don't think the Sixers are there yet, who would you give up on the bench? What would you get? Like, who would you want off their bench?
I mean, I can't name any specific players. I don't know that off the top of my head, like what players would be helpful, but I do know if you're Philly, you need a scoring wing. You can't have, okay, so let's start like this. How about this? Let's look at their roster and tell you what doesn't work. Having a starting three in Matisse Thybulle who can't score, that doesn't work.
I don't think he starts. I don't think he starts. I think it's Tobias.
No, Tobias is at the 4.
Are you sure?
Yes. It's Tyrese Maxey, James Harden, and you can interchange those two. Matisse, Tobias, and Joel.
All right, but in Toronto, what was
in Toronto, it was Danny Green because Matisse Thybulle didn't get the vaccine.
I got you.
So there you go. Then you go to, deeper than that. Okay, so Matisse Thybulle, that's just one player. Tobias Harris, super inconsistent. I know that he has the potential and has been a 20-point per game scorer, and there's a reason he got the $28 million contract or whatever that he has. He's not a terrible player. He just hasn't shown us that he's consistent. And I don't trust that when it comes to winning 16 games in the postseason or whatever. I don't. Then you have James Harden. We've already talked about that a million times. We don't need to talk about that. Tyrese Maxey is young, so I'm not necessarily going to loop him into that because I don't have too many expectations in a playoff series for Tyrese Maxey other than, what he's already given us. You don't know. You just don't know with Tyrese Maxey, which is what he did. He gave us a 40 bomb, and then he kind of was here and there, back and forth in the series. Outside of that, can you really tell me anyone else on the team is doing that much for you to say that takes them over the hump? Georges Niang is a good 3-point shooter. That's it. Paul Reed is a good hustle player who can make some shots, do some things on the defensive end. That's about it. You've got Shake Milton, who used to have some promise and potential. It all went away over the last year or two. Who else do you have?
All right. Here's what I'm saying, though. I'm not arguing for any specific player here because I know what you're saying. They need help at the 3, probably the most.
And then the bench.
Yes. But fully healthy, matched up against the rest of the East, I don't see teams out of the Bucks or the Heat.
Clarify fully healthy really quick.
Joel Embiid without the ligament or orbital, and Matisse being fully vaccinated so he can play anywhere in the country or outside. And I think that's is it.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
Fully healthy, I don't see anybody outside of the Bucks or the Heat who can match up. So even with the Heat, you got Bam on Joel, so that's going to be tough. Shouts out Bam, but still, that's going to be a long day for him.
Yeah, so still Joel Embiid.
All right, that's facts. And then versus the Bucks is going to be Brook, so that's Joel Embiid, obviously. But then you got Giannis, who nobody on the Sixers is going to guard Giannis. Let's be honest here. So I don't know. It just like when fully healthy, you could honestly say the Sixers make it out of the Eastern Conference.
But why? If you look back at the two matchups that you projected, the Milwaukee and Miami, what was the one pivoting factor that changes everything in that and creates win or loss?
The 3.
No. Joel Embiid.
Oh, no, it's not Joel Embiid's health. If he's not coming out in this series versus Miami healthy, which he isn't, we know 1 and 2 games he's not. So I don't want to go into round 2 right now. Right, but round 1, he was not healthy the entire time, and that almost gave up the blown lead to the Raptors. They came.
But the Raptors choked.
No, the Raptors choked for sure. Scottie came back, and if you want to say if Scottie was fully healthy game 1, and then he was there for game 2 also, the series would be different. I would probably agree with you because he almost dropped that triple-double in game 1 and then got injured. And then game 2, he obviously wasn't there. Game 3, he wasn't. And then game 4, he was. And then from so on, he was also. I was there the entire time. I think the Raptors would have definitely won the series.
Replace Van Vliet with Scottie Barnes, and I'd agree with you.
Van Vliet only missed 3, 4, 5, right?
Right, but the issue in 3, 4, 5 was shot creation. They couldn't score.
I mean,
while Scottie Barnes helps those mid-range pull-ups and yes, he's definitely got a more developed offensive game than we thought. He's not giving you 23 points per game and 6-7 assists like Van Vliet is and running your offense like Van Vliet is.
Okay, that's fair though. And with Van Vliet, they probably also would have won fully healthy. But without him, they still took him 6.
Right. That's my whole point. That's my entire point.
Like,
is
it's just like
the Sixers
either way
Joel Embiid to be a god and hit buzzer beaters in order for them to win. Which, by the way,
is it really that though, or do they need the refs?
No, they need Joel.
I don't
A
know.
large part of Joel
I don't
Embiid's
know.
game is foul calls. So it's kind of a mixture. It's that comes into play, and it's a big part of it for Joel.
He's expecting 15 free throws a game. More
I'm
more
I'm not
than
I'm not disagreeing that the refs are a big part. I'm not saying that. I'm saying
they're
that
more than a big part. Let's be honest.
right, but
If he was
that
getting
has to do
Jokic
with
calls,
Joel.
and this is
Right, but
shout out to Shub, if he was getting Jokic calls, they don't win that series
we are
without
agreeing,
Scotty or
dude.
Van
We are
Fleet.
agreeing. We are
Okay.
agreeing.
But
I'm
I
trying
just
to
want to make
say
it sure. I want to make it sure
you've made it
because
sure. I'm
it's
just
straight
saying.
bullshit. It is.
I'm just saying that foul baiting or not, we both agree that that is a large part of Joel Embiid's game, and that is a large part of how he succeeds. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm saying that Joel Embiid, if he's giving you, which is what he did during the series, if he's giving you 25 to 30 a game with buzzer beaters and defensive play and toughness, whatever, all of that, you are winning the series. If he's not, you're not. That's it. Simple as that. There's no X factor. There's no like X factors or, can Matisse Thybulle hit a couple three? It's not. Nope. That's not a question. If Joel Embiid is not giving you 25 to 30 a game, you are losing that series every time. That's it. That's all I have to say. And that's why I have issues with Philly. Simple, simple as that. Um,
All right, wait.
we've
That's
gone.
agreeable. And I just want to say I apologize for cutting you off so many times.
No, you're
And
good.
that time including.
You thought
So
you thought I
on to
was
the next.
disagreeing. You thought I was disagreeing with you about the Joel Embiid fouls thing, and I totally get why you would get mad about that because I get mad about that. You can start this one off. Let's talk real quick. Let's get these teams out quickly because Minnesota or Miami versus Atlanta quickly. Let's go like 3 minutes, dude. What you got for us?
All right, I'll quickly say we have to give flowers to Jimmy Butler. He came out and he looked very polished. We know he's a veteran, obviously, but he took over. He was hitting 3-pointers, which is not he's not known for that mostly. He's known for that post game mid range and layups, passing it
It's a
off.
postseason only shot, really, for Jimmy.
Yeah, which is insane. So I want to tip the cap to that. And Tyler Hero, he's really showing why he's the sixth man of the year. We all know he's gonna win it. So I want to shout out him. This is to Shub right now. Duncan Robinson had one game and he was 8 for 9 from 3 or from the field. Either so. He had a great game, but that was the only game he had. So he did not have the best series at all. Not worth his money. We all know that. But he had one game. And the last I'll say before I give it to you, Doug, is Trae Young. You can't come into the series cocky and just shit the bed. You can't. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
And
Fairs.
we know Trae Young is the best player on that team without a doubt. But he was taking so many logo threes or right on the wing 30 footers with 14 or more seconds on the shot clock and just bricking them. And it was honestly a shame because I have to shout out Steph Curry again. He's done this to the league. I mean, so many players look after him and that's what he does. But when this happens in a playoff game where you're down and you're just chucking threes, it's not acceptable. You have to go to the best option available, whether or not that's a mid-range layup or three, whatever it is. You have to go to the best option available. You can't just come down from half court and chuck it. And that really pissed me off because I knew the Hawks had so much more fight in them. But I mean, with that performance, no Clint for a couple games, it was tough. I mean, they didn't have the rebounding they needed. Kevin Huerter could have done better. He had a couple good games, but He should have done better. DeAndre Hunter had a sick game. He had a nice game where he just popped off. John Collins has to do better if he's worth that money. Clint Capella, I hope he gets healthier. But into the offseason, they have to think what's next, because they're young. They're not really too young. Bogdan, he wasn't there for a game, but he had a great series. Danilo, he was
Whoa.
coming
We're gonna
off
have
the
to
bench.
slow down. We're gonna have to slow down real quick. Bogdan had one good game.
No, he had a couple of good games. He wasn't the
He had a
worst
couple
on
mid
defense at
games,
all. Yeah,
couple
like
mid games,
I
but he
think
had
he had a good
one. He had
series.
one good game.
No, for his standards, he had a great series, I'd say, because they're not expecting the most. But he's not on a playoff team, the second option. But that's what he was. He's not.
I mean,
on a great team, he's not. But on that team, he was.
Yeah. I mean,
so for what they were asking, I think he did more than expected, because he was picking up the slack of Trey, Kevin, Clint, John, and it was just tough. DeAndre Hunter was there, but he wasn't doing the most.
Kevin Knox averaged 4.6 minutes in the series.
Kevin Knox, we're talking Kevin Knox, the worst player in the league, Doug.
Their fourth highest scorer in the series.
I thought that was Danilo.
No, it was Kevin Knox.
Yeah, that's
at 11 points per game.
That's where that's where they're regretting the Cam Reddish trade.
It might have just been that. No. Yeah. It was like 2 games.
They needed Cam Reddish. That's all I'll say. Cam Reddish is that guy. Always will be.
That's a fact. And there's not much I can say. That's not going to repeat what you said. Onyeka looked good in his minutes, which was nice to see. That's someone I really, really wanted as a Pistons fan. But we got Killian, so let's see how that ends up. I don't know. I said the same thing I'm going to say now before the series started. It's like they're just not going to win because they don't have enough. Their role players are not good enough. Simple as that. That's tough because they do have, like you said, shining lights and people like DeAndre Hunter, who's really, really shown the variety in his offensive game, which we haven't seen so much, especially due to injury issues. But, we were lucky enough to get to see him fully in a playoff series, which was very impressive. You got to, like you said, give him his flowers. But, man, I don't know. I both trust Miami to make it to the finals if they're good. Like if no injuries or anything like that, like something tells me this team could just cakewalk almost to the finals just based off of like the past couple of years. Some random ass, thing could happen and we just see them,
I would agree just based on injuries. Teams,
Yeah, I think Miami is one of those teams where it's like outside of the Bucks as a whole, like in the league, I think Miami, because they're the 1 seed, because they were in the finals in the bubble, against the Lakers. I think a lot of people disregarded the Milwaukee championship, which is fucking stupid. And I think a lot of big time guys, I think it was the other day, there was a poll that has Miami, going all the way to the finals. And it's like tons and tons of people of these top, analyst guys. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they come into this next round playing just as they did last round, where, their role players come in and make their shots and do what they need to do. And their star players kind of just take that extra little step where, Jimmy's scoring a little bit more, Bam's being more aggressive, Kyle is being more aggressive. I don't know.
They have to get Kyle back. They have to get Lowry back. He got injured. We have to note that. So that's going to be a tough one. If Miami can stay healthy, they're definitely one of the most favored out of the East. I'll say that because the Sixers, Bucks both have injuries right now. And out of the Celtics, they look great, right now, and their defensive scheme looked great, but the Bucks are taking them to town, and we're not talking about round 2 right now. So we'll see how that goes.
Speaking of Milwaukee, we will. I know I just said we'll try to keep that last one short, so we'll both we'll try a little bit harder now. Milwaukee and Chicago. Giannis did his thing. Chris Middleton looked kind of slow when he was playing, and unfortunately, he just started to look like he was getting his rhythm going as he, left the game due to his injury. What else about the Bucks? Brooke Lopez looking Brooke Lopez-y. You know,
Grayson Allen. Talk
Grayson
about him,
Allen.
Doug.
Yeah, facts. Grayson Allen. We hate Grayson Allen. But he's a shooter for sure. I mean, he is there to make shots, and he does that. He makes shots. He's a an interesting move that I wasn't expecting in the offseason. I wasn't expecting DiVincenzo to be gone, to be honest with you, after, coming back from injury. I thought his defensive presence was actually a little bit more impactful. But, looking at this series, and Drew Holiday and his defense as well on Zach LaVine in some of those moments was, Drew Holiday. It's what he does.
The glue
Uh,
guy.
Fuck you. But I don't think there's too much to say. I think myself included, like I got a little worried when Chris went down. But it's Giannis, it's the Bucks. We just said that a lot of people take Miami as the Eastern Conference favorites, but a lot of people would know that, it's the Bucks. They've been the Eastern Conference favorites since they won the championship last year. They've looked cohesive despite the missing Chris. I'm a little worried about what that means long term in the playoffs. Like once you really start getting down to it, because yes, obviously first round is competitive, but that's kind of, gets real in the playoffs, in the second round, in the conference finals, not having that shot making. We'll see.
Yeah, so I want to say this about the Bulls Bucks series. For one, I really want to give the flowers to the Bulls for stealing a game because nobody really came out and thought they would do that. And after DeMar came out and had a crappy first game, he came out and dropped that 40 bomb. And that's really worth it because you're looking onto the future and what you can grab onto. And that's something you can grab onto as a Bulls fan. I also want to say with this aging roster of Vucevic, not aging roster, I'll take that back.
Relatively.
Yes. With DeMar aging, Vucevic, and not Zach LaVine, but he's come off the torn ACL, so you have to still be cautious, even
And
though
he's a
how
free
good he
agent.
was. You have to think about what's next. And without Caruso, I mean, they had him for a couple games, but he got injured again. And he was very impactful, so you want to keep him. But for the Bulls' future, you really want to look into keeping LaVine and making sure Lonzo comes back healthy, and then rehabbing Caruso as well. Because this team showed that they can compete without a doubt, fully healthy until January when Lonzo and Caruso went down. They were
Facts.
competing for sure. DeRozan was putting up MVP numbers, and we cannot deny that. And it was just a shame when it all went downhill.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta figure out the Vooch problem.
Yeah, so going on to the Bucks, I think after Chris went down, Giannis really took it upon himself and Drew to perform offensively and create defensively. And as we all know, defense creates championships, and they had so many fast break points. It was insane. But I also want to shout out the Bucks bench because they filled in. They said next man up, and that's how it was. Pat Connaughton, Grayson Allen, all of them were putting in work, and it's really just a shouts out. I hope soon enough. Shouts out to Shub, Jordan Nwora, get some game time because he deserves it. He can put in that work. We'll see. But right now, going to this next series, I want to put it on Brooke Lopez. We're not talking about round 2 right now, but they're versing the Heat. So, not the Heat. Sorry, the Celtics. I want to put it on Brooke and Drew to pop off because we know Giannis will. So, going on to the next.
Yeah, Golden State, Denver. We got to do. We're doing our final Shub shout out of the day. Talking about the Denver Nuggets. I think this is a great representation of sportsmanship from Draymond Green. I know this is a super weird and a specific thing to bring up, but I think it was like 15 minutes after the last game, Draymond recorded his podcast, reaction episode or whatever, and immediately gave Jokic flowers. Just immediately, congratulated on his season, how well he played. It's just good to see, something like that. I just have to say that really quick. But there's not much to say. The Warriors, this was kind of like their runway almost for the playoffs. They got damn lucky with seeding, running into a extremely injury-ridden Denver Nuggets squad. It really allowed, you had Steph Curry coming off the bench a couple of those games, which allowed him to ramp up. And you had Jordan Poole having his first playoff experience, letting him kind of be in that same role that he was used to when Steph went down to make sure he kept that consistency. And he showed that by showing out. You had the Draymond Green just doing what he does. It's just, the Warriors looked like they used to. And you just throw in an extra splash nephew and Jordan Poole. And now it's the pool party. I am super, super excited for what Golden State has in the rest of the playoffs. But there's not too much to talk about for this series, if we're being honest.
Yeah, there's not much. I want to shout out the Nuggets supporting cast because although they got cooked, I think they deserve their flowers for putting up that effort because they were playing against star players, superstars in Clay and Steph, and even Draymond. I'll call him a star.
He's a star.
Yes, and I want to shout out Jokic because he's obviously the MVP this year, and he needs his flowers because his team wasn't fully healthy. I mean, you talk about Jamal Murray all the time. We talk about him, Michael Porter Jr. I mean, if you have those star factors, you're going to be better, obviously. But they did not, and the Warriors took care of business. Jordan Poole, he had the best 2 games of his career. Shub said that in last podcast. And honestly, Steph coming off the bench was honestly, it kind of threw the Nuggets off, I would say, because although he came off the bench, he looked like a starter. He was putting up better numbers than what he was as a starter in the playoffs. And it just looked like they had so many options to go to on offense, and their defense was suffocating. So in all aspects of the series, it just looked like the Warriors took care of business. Steve Kerr made sure to put in the right players at the right time, and they got it done. They got it done.
Yeah. And the real quick, I loved the confidence and Steve Kerr instilled in Gary Payton in that last game. Where, even though Gary Payton is clearly not the best guard that they have, you keep him on the floor because he's hot, he's making his shots, and he's playing his defense. Um, I just when it comes down to it, the Denver Nuggets put in the effort required to win a series. However, it's just, when you are so severely outmatched, it is pretty tough to figure that out. But that's it. That's all we got for you guys today. I know this was very long-winded, very dragged out. Um, Definitely didn't have as much structure as maybe we will have in the future. Hopefully that will keep us from making an hour-long reaction video about the first round. But I hope, we covered all the bases, talked about all the series, a lot coming for the Hustlin' Hoops Network. We got this about to be posted, podcast coming every week, TikTok about to start up. Watch out for the dances, the dance routines coming from Shub and Duve. Some Instagram posts, maybe we'll do that. I don't know. Duve is in the bathroom, probably gonna cut off the volume now. But yeah, leave a like, subscribe, go listen to our podcast, follow us on Twitter, all our social medias. We'll link them down below, and have a great rest of your day.
Take care, everybody.